Hi, good evening, good morning, everyone. Uh, we'll start in a couple of minutes. So please hold on. We'll start in a couple of minutes. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. I hope everybody is able to see the screen. Can you please give a thumbs up if you are able to see the screen? Thank you very much, Suvecha. Anybody else? Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Let's get started. So I'll give a brief, what you can say, a recap of what we have done yesterday. We started yesterday with our VPC setup. Hmm? We created a custom VPC. In the custom VPC, I have told you what are the different steps, what are the things you have to create. Basically, we created the VPC, we created the subnet within our VPC, and post that subnet creation, we created two resources within our VPC. One was a public virtual machine and one was a private virtual machine. In the public subnet, we assigned a public IP address to our machine and we tried to connect to that. But because it was it was a custom VPC, there was no connectivity out to the outside world from that particular EC2 instance. So we went ahead and we have created various other components which were part of our VPC. The first thing we created was a internet gateway, and we used that internet gateway to route the traffic through it. Eventually, after setting up the route tables and the routes, we were able to connect to the public machine. Then we tried to connect to the private machine using our public machine as a jump host server or a bastion server. Then we 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 created a NAT gateway for our private machine to communicate to the internet via this NAT gateway. And we were able to do that, and post that we moved to another service of AWS, which was CloudTrail and CloudWatch. CloudWatch is service which is going to help you to do monitoring of your AWS resources and give you the metrics around it. The CloudWatch is very useful when you are using services like your auto scaling, Lambda functions, and so on. So we have seen that. Then we have also seen CloudTrail. CloudTrail is nothing but a service which will enable you to have audit of all the API activity done in your AWS account. Then from today, we are going to look at the relational database RDS offering from AWS. So I'm sure most of you might have heard of databases. Now, what is database? So before we go and look at the various services of AWS, we will look at the key concept of relational database. Okay, so what is a relational database? Now, if you look at this table, this table consists of a rows and a column. Now, whenever you want to represent your data in a form of this table and column, you call that as a tabular data. And this is called as a database, which is nothing but a kind of a store for your data, which is stored in your computer or in your digital device. The data is, in this case, is a structured data. Why? Because you have rows and column, and that's why you are able to easily read that data. If you have a data which is kept in this form of a database, then that kind of database is called relational database, because there is a relation between the column, the column in name, age, and country, with the row which is having a value as Natalia, age, and Iceland. It has some kind of a relation between it, and that's the reason it is called as relational database. It uses a structure that will help you to easily access and identify one part of data with another piece of data within that database table. And this is the feature of the relational database, that your data will be stored in a tabular form. Whenever you want to access this data, whenever you want to read this data, you need to use one form of a language which is called as structured query language. You need to write certain statements. There is a syntax for it, and use that to get the data from this table. That is done by using a language called structured query language. Now we can see here in this column, we have name, age, country, and each has some values. Now, based upon these values, we are getting some kind of information that yes, a person called Ned is age 6 and he stays in a country or in a city called New York. Okay, so this is a relational database. Another piece, another very important aspect of the relational database, the data is something is very structured. You do not have any room for the data being moving out of this tabular structure. Okay, so remember, relational database is stored in a structured format. Somebody will also call this as a schema. So relational database has a fixed schema as compared to other databases. So we will see non-relational database as well, and we'll try to figure out what is the difference between non-relational and a relational database. So this is just a basic overview of the relational database in general. Yeah, let us go and move next. Now, when it comes to the database offering within AWS, there are so many databases services which are available for you in your AWS database. Okay, so based upon the different use cases, there are different variety of database which we can explore as part of our application design. Now, each database is trying to solve certain problems and is very suitable for that particular problem. So if you look at the various kind of services which are offered by by AWS and its use cases and the kind of database it can be referred to. So the relational database, it generally uses for a ERP solution, enterprise resource planning, or custom resource management portal, or any kind of e-commerce website, and any traditional application. The data is generally stored in the form of table. This kind of a relational database services are offered by using AWS's RDS, which is relational database service. Within the relational database, we also have something called as Amazon Aurora, which is one of the engines which is offered on the RDS. And then we also have Amazon Redshift, which is a data warehousing solution from AWS, but it is again based upon your NoSQL or Postgres SQL database. So these are the different types of relational database you have within your AWS environment. Um, then we have a key value pair kind of a database. Now, what is key value pair? This is just going to have a key and a value. Yes. So the property of the key will be such a way that this key will be unique within that particular database, and this key might be used as a kind of a index for your database. Hmm. In the use cases are high web traffic apps, any kind of a e-commerce system, gaming application which needs very low latency and super fast interaction. Generally, these key value pairs are kind of a no value or no SQL database, which is opposite to, I would say, to what we have in relational. It has a very limited, I would say, a very unstructured schema when we go for a key value pair. The offering which is there available in AWS, it is called as Dynamodb. Then we have in-memory database. Now, what is this in-memory database? Now, there are certain items in your database or in your application which will need a frequent access to that data on a very regular interval. Now, instead of going directly to the database, fetching it from there, giving it in your application to the user, it becomes very cumbersome and at times slows your application. To speed up this process, we have an in-memory database, which works as a kind of a cache to give you the frequently accessed data from a in-memory cache database. So use case for this kind of a in-memory database is for session management, any kind of a geospatial application, any kind of a session caching, and so on. In AWS, we call that database as Amazon Elasticache. Within Amazon Elasticache, we have two kinds of engine. One is called Redis and another is called as Memcached. Both have its own advantages and disadvantages, and they are good fit for your in-memory cache applications. Then we will look at another database which is called as document database. And this is generally used for any kind of a user profiles, any kind of a content management, service catalogs of your items, and so on. Now, this is called as document DB in AWS. And this document DB is almost compatible with the MongoDB, which is an open source document database available. Then we have wide column database. Wide column database is nothing but which is used for any kind of a fleet management, route optimization, where you need more data to be stored in your database, more data in terms of the columns. Yeah, it is used for high scale industrial apps, for equipment maintenance, and so on. This is called as Amazon Keyspace, and which is just like Apache Cassandra database. Then we have a graph kind of a database. This is a very new concept which is now being adopted very rapidly, which is called as Amazon Neptune. This kind of a graph database or GraphQL database, which is generally called, it is used for social networking, relationship management, or mapping of the data, any kind of a recommendation engine, any kind of fraud detection, which gives you a kind of a graphical view of the data. Then we have time series. Time series database, it is used for your IoT application, industrial telemetry, and so on. This is called as Amazon Time Stream. And then the last one is the ledger database. Okay. Yeah, so it is called as system. It is used to keep system on record. Yeah, and it is for any kind of supply chain and any kind of a banking transaction. This is called as Amazon QLDB, Quantum Ledger Database. Hmm, okay, fine. So this is all we have from the various database offering from AWS. Now, out of these offerings, we are going to look at few of the databases. What we are going to look? We are going to look at Amazon RDS. We are going to look at DynamoDB. So these are the most popular database engines or database offerings which is available, and we'll look at this. We will also do a practical for our RDS and DynamoDB as well. By looking at the practical, you will be able to understand how it is easy and efficient to maintain and to install it. Okay, let's go to RDS. Now, what is RDS? Relational Database Service, that is the name. It's a web service that makes it very, very easy to set up, operate, scale a relational database in the cloud. Now, anybody who has who has worked with database, he must be knowing the pain of setting up a database. To set up a database, it is very, very I would say a time consuming and very critical job. There are specialized skill set which are needed for you to set up the database and utilize it. With the relational database offering from AWS, lot of challenges of setting up your database are removed. The offering of RDS from AWS is a fully managed service offering. When I say fully managed, what are the things which are being managed? So AWS takes care most of the things which you have to do on your on-premise environment. For example, if you want to patch your database, you have to do that in your on-premise environment. If you want to have some kind of a update, you have to do it on your. So with your relational database offering from AWS, this all the patching, updates, backup, everything is taken care by your AWS. Hmm? This whatever the offering, whatever the features which are offered by relational database, they provide you very, very cost effective, resizable capacity of your database, and it will also take care of the most common administration task from your database. Few of the benefits: you can scale the CPU, the memory, the storage, and IOPS independently of each other. Whenever you need to increase the memory, increase the storage, yes, you can do that on the fly. There's a feature of auto scaling of the storage, and we will understand why it is so critical. Hmm? So when you use your RDS, the RDS will take care of the backup of your database as well. It will also do the patching. Any kind of a minor patching, it will take on its own without your intervention. With RDS, we also have an offering of a multi-AZ database. We will see that in the later slide, which will help you to have an automatic failure detection as well as recovery from it. With the automated backup can be set up whenever it is needed, and along with that, you can also have a manual backup. So we will see this all the things when we go and configure our database. I will explain you in more details what are we talking about. You can use this backup which we have taken as part of our automated process or maybe as part of a manual process to restore it and then utilize that backup to create another database copy. That is also possible when we are utilizing the backup to restore it. Okay, so let us go and look at. So when I say the RDS, it supports multiple database engine as part of your the RDS offering. Now, what is this? Under the service, you can create a different type of database. For example, you can create the open source MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL, then MySQL compatible Amazon Aurora DB engine. Now the last one is the proprietary database engine, which is created by AWS, and it is being offered as a very viable solution as compared to other commercially available database solution in the market. So we will look at all these offerings in the console, and we will create one of the database MySQL, and we'll try to connect to it and see the connectivity. Now, because the database is a fully managed database, there are certain things which you cannot do on this database. For example, you will not have the root access to the underlying hardware of this database. Why? Because it is taken care by AWS. At times, certain customers might say that yes, they will need access to the root of the database. In that case, this relational database will not be the right choice for you. And because of that, there will be certain restrictions to access certain system procedures, which at some time might not be the ideal case for a customer who needs that. So you have to be aware. Now, what are the solutions for it then? Okay, so what you can do is you can take any database package and use a EC2 instance and install that particular database package onto that EC2 instance and use this EC2 instance as your own database. But in that case, what will happen is you will not have the facility of a fully managed database. You have to take care of the security. You have to take care of the administrator task of your database. You have to do the patching. You need to do the upgradation and so on. This is the relational database for you. Okay, so first of all, let us look at what are the various features we have with our database. Now, whenever we create our RDS, we can either create it as a single standalone database instance, or I can create a kind of a multi-AZ deployment of my database. Now, what is a multi-AZ deployment of my database? The multi-AZ deployment is nothing but like this. So here is your multi-AZ deployment, and let me get the on. Where is my pen? Yes. Yeah. So this is called as a multi-AZ deployment of your RDS. In this case, what happens is you have a cluster of database, which is helpful to give you high availability. Now, how it is done? In this case, you will have a master database. This is your master database, and there will be another instance of your database, which is called as standby database. Now, at any given point of time, this master database will be the one which is used by the application. What are the features? We will see that. So multi-AZ deployment provides high availability, durability, and a failure support. When we use this RDS, it can provision and manage a synchronous standby instance in a different AZ. That means by providing another EC2 instance in or another database in another AZ, you are making your database a highly resilient database which can sustain a actual AZ failure. So if one AZ fails, and if that is the case, your database will still be behaving as if nothing has happened. And this is being done by using an automatic failure feature of the RDS. Whenever you create a RDS, we create something called as we get us a DNS endpoint for our database. This DNS database endpoint is going to point to the primary database at any given point of time. Whenever there is a kind of a failure in your database, it will seamlessly move your connection to the secondary database. So RDS automatically fails over to the standby. So the database administration can resume quickly without any administrative intervention. Huh? You can also do a planned maintenance of your database. We have that option to specify when we want to do the maintenance. This is a daily maintenance which we are talking about. There will be an option to do a auto patching. You can specify and give the rights to AWS to do a minor upgrade of your database without involving you, and this will be taken seamlessly. Then yeah, whenever any kind of a there is any issues in your primary, your you will be able to seamlessly migrate to the standby, and it can sustain a availability zone failure. What happens is, whenever you create database, so this is the DNS endpoint which is created, xyz.com. Let's say this is the and this is the xyz.com is the URL. Your application will anytime will try to connect to this xyz.com, and which will be pointing to your master database. Suppose there is some issue in your database and it is failed. Now in this case, what happens is, whatever the data which is in your master database, which is there in your master database, it is synchronously getting copied into your secondary database. At any given point of time, there is a no lag between your database item. There is no lag between your primary and your standby database. Another very important thing to remember is, whenever you are using this multi-AZ deployment, all the read write operations are done on the all the read and write operations are done on the primary. It is done on the primary. Only okay, in case if your master database has failed, then only this will become the master, and on this you will have the read and write operation. Otherwise, and at any given point of time, this master will take care of the read write operation. So this is how your database will work. Now, whenever there is a failure, as is the case, yeah, give me a minute. Just to hold on for a minute. Okay. So I was referring, yeah. So whenever there is a failure of your database, what happens is, this whatever the connection which is there on this will be now pointing to this secondary database. And in that case, the read write operation will happen from this database, and you will be able to take care of all the operation. Now remember one thing, because the DNS URL is not changing, you do not have to do any kind of changes in your application side. And that's why I'm saying it is very seamless and very powerful in that case. So this is your RDS. Now let us go and create a database, and then we'll come back to another concept which is called as red replica, and we will understand that what is red replica. So, or to the management console. Give me a minute. I will try to log in into it. And yes, portal. Okay, so here we are. Yes. So let us go and get started on this. Uh, so if you go to this RDS here, and here is the RDS for you. So let me update you. Yeah. So just a minute. What's happening? Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Now, as a part of your AWS free tier offering, we have one instance of db.t2 micro as free of cost. Yeah. So we can very well use that to do the practice. But remember, with this T2 micro or db.t2 micro offering, there is certain features which we are not able to use it. For example, we'll not be able to build a multi-AZ RDS. So we'll look at that as well. Okay. So from this screen, here is your various offering, and what we will do, we will say create database. Now remember one thing, the creation of database is going to take some amount of time because almost 5 minutes, because there are a lot of things which are done in the backend. So there are different methods how you create your database. One is the standard create. In the standard create, what happens is you have to fill all the details and then create your database. Hmm? But there is another way which is called as easy create, which has very few options, and we'll be able to create the database. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the standard create option, and that is going to help us to look at each and every options we have. Remember, we have already talked that we have the 6 database engine. Yeah. Just a minute. So Bharat, if you are there on the call, there is somebody called Nirek Shah. Can you please talk to him? He's having a lot of queries in terms of topic which are not related to. Maybe you can just remove him from the class as well. Yeah, that will be good for everybody. Nirek Shah. Okay, fine. Then we are going to look at the type of database engineer. So as I have already told you, we have 6 type of database engine in the offering, and we are going to create MySQL database. Here is MySQL. Then this is the database engine. You can see Aurora is there. You can see MariaDB is there, and then Microsoft SQL, Oracle, and Postgres. So we are going to create a MySQL, and then we are going to go ahead with the latest version of the MySQL, which is 8.028. Then we have different types of template which can be used along with our database creation. So there can be a production template, there can be a dev test, and there can be a free tier. So if I look at that production template, you have the option of creating a single database, a multi-AZ database, and a multi-AZ database cluster. And this is also possible with your dev test kind of a template. But when I move to the free tier, you can see there is no option for me to select the deployment option. Am I audible, Rajesh? I think I'm audible. Can others please? Yes, thank you, Imran. Okay, fine. Okay, thank you very much. Just a minute. Okay, so here is the free tier what we are going to use, and then we need to give a name to our database. Now this is not the name of the database but the instance. So I can give a name like my db 123. That is the name I'm going to give. Then I'm going to give a username for my database. Now this is going to be the user data, the master database name. So I'm going to keep it same in this case. And then I have to, okay, it is saying it is not going to accept the underlying. Okay. Only letters and underscore accepted must start with a database. Okay. So it is I will just give a name something like this. My db123, and then here as well, my db123. Fine. And then a password. Remember, this password is going to be very, yeah, it is not going to take any special characters, cannot have special characters. So I will just give a password here, which is my db. Four, 5. Okay, fine. And 5. This is the password I have given, and then we will come to the. Sorry, give me a minute. Okay, it is asking a password which is having at least 8 characters. And same here. Fine, and that is should be good enough. With the free tier offering, sorry, with the free tier offering, it is giving a db.t3 micro or t2 micro. We don't have any choice apart from the T family. You can see here, it is also giving a t4g micro, but not anything else. Yeah, and t2 micro is there. Yeah, then okay, then we have to look at the storage of our database. Hmm? The storage of database will be of this type. Okay, GP2, IO1, and the magnetic. So we are going to go ahead with the GP2, and you can see I can allocate a memory, and there is a the storage for it, and there's also an option of enabling auto scaling on our storage. Hmm? So by doing auto scaling, what we are doing is we are going to increase the size of our storage to get more performance. Now why this is very important. Yeah, so when we want to get more IOPS from our database, we need to actually increase the size of our storage. Why? Because your IOPS is directly proportional to the size of the data, the storage. So in general, if you look at the GP2 kind of a storage, it is giving you 1:3 kind of a IOPS. And that's the reason if you need more IOPS, and then you have to go and increase the size of your database. Hmm? So this is one of the factor. Whenever you need to have more performance, more read write operation from your database, which is nothing but your IOPS, input output operation per second, then you need to go and increase the size of your storage. In this case, we are saying the maximum we can go is the 1000 GB. Hmm. Then we have to create our database within a particular VPC. So I'm going ahead with the default VPC. I'm not going to use any kind of a any custom VPC. Then we are going to use the default subnet group for our database. The third thing what we have to do in this is to select the access to our database. Now, generally, whenever you are using a database, it should not have any kind of a private access. Not have any kind of a public access. But because we are trying to use our database and we want to connect to it out from outside of the AWS environment, then we have to select the public access. But this is strictly no if you are using it for your production environment or your dev test or anything. Keep your database without any kind of a public access. But I'm using it for our practical purpose. Then we are going to create a new security group for it. I will give a name for it, my RDS SG. And then I can select one of the AZ, or I can just simply leave it as it is. Then this is the port on which we are going to listen to our MySQL database. So this is a default port. We are going to use it. Then whenever we want to connect to our database, we have to also look at the authentication method by which we are going to connect. So there are three methods. One is password authentication. One is called as password and IAM database authentication. And then the third one is the Kerberos. In this case, we are going to use the password authentication because we want to keep it very simple, and that's the reason we have just used the master database here, the master database password and the username for it. And then we can do additional configuration. We just have to give the database initial database name, whatever the database we are creating within our database, we have to give the name of that. My DB123, this is what I'm going to give. And then we come to the maintenance and the backup section. In this, you can see that the RDS is going to take care of the backup. So backup is by default enabled automatically on your RDS. And you can see this backup can be retained for a period of 0 to 35 days, the maximum. Hmm? So this is the maximum. Once you have the backup, which is more than 35 days, it is going to be overwritten. So for our practical purpose, I'm just giving it as 0 days because I don't want a backup to be created for it. Hmm? This is what. Then I can select a backup window. I have a choice to choose my own timing here. If I choose a window, it needs half an hour, or I can say simply no preference, and it will do the backup at its own the time, which is default timing for this. So I will say no preference. I will keep it as it. Then I can encrypt my database. Okay, by default, encryption is also enabled, but in this case, I'm not going to encrypt it. I'm just going to leave it because I don't want to have that encrypted data. Then I can do enhanced monitoring of my database. If I enable this, then it will do enhanced monitoring and we'll be able to see the different parameters of our database. I can also export the logs for my database. So there are different types of log, for example, error log, slow query log, audit log, and so on. If I go and enable it, it will be done then, but I'm not setting it up. Then I told you it is a fully managed service. The maintenance is also taken care by AWS. So I have an option to enable the minor version upgrade automatically. Hmm? I have to select this and this is by default enabled. But if I uncheck it, then I have to do that. Okay. Again, the same, you have the choice to choose a window or you can say no preference. Okay. So this is how. And once this is done, it will give you what is the cost of your database and then you can just simply create it. So let me go and just do a recap of what is the option we have selected. So we went with the standard create option. Then we have used the MySQL engine. Then we went into the version. We kept it the default one. We use the free tier, which does not give us option to create a multi-AZ or anything. Then we gave our DB instance identifier, which is my DB123. Then a master username and a password. And then we went ahead with the default settings of the 20 GB as the storage and auto storage scaling enabled on it. Then we have selected our default VPC, default subnet. I made a change to the public access. And then I created a new RDS for us with no preference to the AZ. I kept the database as it is. For the authentication, I have simply used the password authentication method. In the additional configuration, I have just given the name of my initial database and you will see that name when I try to connect to this database. Then enable auto backup, that is kept to 0 days because I don't want to incur the charges for any kind of a backup. So I kept it 0 days. You can keep it from 0 to 35 days. Then backup window, I said no preference. Monitoring and encryption I have removed. And then maintenance, I have kept it the default option. And that's it. And I'm going to create the database of my own. I will say create database. Now this is going to take at least 3 to 4 minutes. So we will wait for that time and okay. And if you have any queries, I can take that queries. So let me go through this. Yes. So database flavor means others, the type of database, different types of databases. Hmm? The one that I have shown you based upon the your use cases, that is the flavors of the database. Hmm. Anybody else? No. Okay, is this the last service of AWS? We are going to learn DynamoDB as well. Can one database be attached to multiple EC2 instance? Um, so if you have, yes, it can be done, but then yes, why do you want to do that? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. Difference between Dynamo and RDS. So DynamoDB is your NoSQL database, non-relational database, whereas your RDS is the relational. Hmm. Anybody else? Okay, so we'll wait for 2 minutes for this to be completed. So it is showing creating, creating, creating. Yes, for this database, yes, you need to understand SQL, how to write the queries and so on. Correct, Imran? Where do we store our database in an instance? In which EC2 instance? Imran. So this is a completely different EC2 instance. Yeah, it is you call it as a database instance, not a EC2 instance. This is completely different, and it is part of your AZ. Okay, it's creating, 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 and we'll wait. No, it's not stored in S3. Did I say, Imran, it's stored in S3? It is a EC2 kind of a EC2 instance. Hmm? Now, for connecting to this database, we need a client. Okay, and I have used one of the client, which is called as SQL Electron. This is the client. If you look at this, I am giving you a link of this and I'm pasting it in this. Yeah, go ahead and install this client so that we can connect to our database. Once I have this, we'll be able to open it. So RDS, you can create one database only. DynamoDB, DynamoDB has certain the functionality of DynamoDB is completely different actually as compared to your RDS. So we will go there and we'll see that. Hmm? So here is my database. Oh, excellent. So my database is showing available now. Now let us go and create it. If you need to understand the credentials to connect it, you can just say view and it will show the, the details of it. Hmm? And this is the endpoint name I was talking about. So after installing this SQL, I can open this SQL Electron. We open it on my laptop. And here it is. So let it open. Yeah, here is the software I was talking about, the client. And there is already a one which I will remove it. Yes. Now, once we have our database, we need to connect it to a SQL client, and that will give us the functionality to edit and play with our database. We can do that via CLI as well, but that is a little tricky. But yes, we can do that by using a SQL client, which will give you a graphic GUI kind of a way to interact with your database. So what I have to do first, I have to go here and say add connection. I give a name, my DB connection. This is the name. And then you have to select the database. In our case, I have selected MySQL. And in the server address, I have to give this DNS endpoint. I will say copy it and go in there and paste it here. By default, it has taken the port number already. Then I have to give the username. The username will come from this, which is this one. I will paste it here. Yeah, and a password for it. Password. And that's it. And I will try to test my connection and it should work. Now, if this does not work, there is some changes which you have to do. I will tell you that as well. So now it is tested. I can just do one thing, save it. And here is my connection and I can connect to it. As soon as I connected, you can see that there is a database table which is already created for me. Here is the my database 123. And then I can use simple queries to create the database. So let me just put in a single query to create a database. Hold on. Yeah, where is the simple query? Yes, I'm just trying to pull in the there is the query. Hold on. And query, most common SQL query. I was just looking for it. Not here. Hold on for a minute. I have copied this query somewhere else and I'm just trying to find it out. But this is how you should be able to connect to it. And then you can run simple queries. Again, you have to be aware of the syntax of this queries, what you are going to run. This should match with the MySQL query syntax and you should be able to do it immediately. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's it. Here it is. You can say and put it here and execute it. If okay, so you have an error. This is giving me an error. I can just simply remove it and execute it. Okay, the person already exists. Table person ID. Okay, I can say persons execute and persons already exist. Just remove this. What you want to download? the person name tables are already exist. Employee, I will just say employee and execute it. Very good. So that's, so you can see here the table as employee created, and I can have a value for it. Here it is, like this. How you can you download? Can you explain again, Akash? What is the use of SQL Electron? This is a client which will help you to work with your database. You can see here that yes, I am able to work with this, and I can fill in the data and so on in this my database. I can work with this. I can then run a query. These are the simple queries which will help to just yeah. So I do not have any data in this at this moment, but I can just run select star from employee and limit. It will show all the things in my database. How can I download? Here is the link for it. You can just download the GUI here and it will take you to this GitHub page. And then in this, you can download based upon your operating system, a Windows, a zip or a Mac zip or so on. Okay. So Akarsh, is this fine? Bilal, did you get the understanding of what is the use of SQL? Yes, my PHP admin. Yes, it is something like SQL client, my PHP admin, and so on. Okay, fine. So this is how you create your database, connect to it, and use it. Now, if you look at on top of it, at times you might get some error when connecting to your database, and this will come from your actually the security group. If I go into this configuration, you will see the security group of your database. Where is the connectivity? Here is, yeah, you can see your database security group. At times, it might create issues in connecting to this SQL Electron. Why it is I'm saying that it might create an issue? Because if you look at the inbound rule for this, it created a rule to connect to MySQL Aurora with 3306, and this is the IP address it has taken. This is nothing but the IP address of my machine. That means only I will be able to connect it. If the IP address of my machine change, then I will not be able to connect it. So you have to go here and change this. So at times this might be an issue with your connectivity to your database. So be aware of it. Okay. So that's it. And what I want to do is I want to take a couple of minutes of break and then we'll continue on this. Okay. So we'll be on a pause for a couple of minutes and we'll start again. Yeah, so I'm back. Let's get started. Okay, so yeah, if you have a question, just put it there and yeah, fine. So this is your RDS. Then let's go and move to the different concept. Now we have seen, uh, yeah, we have seen that the multi-AZ, it works in this way, wherein you have a multiple instance of your database, and it will help you to support the high availability. Hmm? Now, another very important concept in the databases. Yeah. So whenever use database, two things are happening on your database. One is the write operation and another is the read operation. Whenever this read and write operation are happening, it is actually consuming the IOPS of your database. Now, at times there might be a need for somebody to only do a read operation on your database, but still that is coming to your master database and it is utilizing the resources of your database. In event of such kind of a things, what you can do, you can create something called as red replicas. Now, what is this red replica? The red replica is nothing but another kind of a database, which is a copy of your master database, and whatever the data you have in your master database, it will be simply having the same set of data, but this data is going to be stored in that red replica in a asynchronous way. That means there will be some kind of a lag between your database. Now, how it is, I will just show you based upon this. So what I was saying is it's another database. Yeah? So I take this and this is your master database. And what I'm saying is here is your another database, which is I'm talking and saying it is a red replica RR. I name it RR. Hmm? So what is happening is it is going to have a data backup or data synchronization from your database as a sync method, async. Okay, which means your data will not be that, I would say, a real-time synchronization. So it will have some kind of a lag between your original data and the data in your red replica. Okay, now by doing this, what is happening is you are actually provisioning another database which can take care of the read values and only. Okay, the read only. So by doing this, what you have to do, you have to point your application to this read replica URL. Now this URL will be something like this: r.xyz.com. And this URL will be different from the URL which you have for your master database. Then this kind of a read operation will be handled in your application and will be pointed out to your read replica. In that case, what will happen is your master database will be little less utilized for the read operation. And by doing this, it is going to improve the performance of your database. And this is how the red replica is going to be helpful. So what do? You create a red replica which will be used only for read operation, no write operations. And by doing that, it is going to help you to improve the performance of your database. This is going to provide a high availability, durability, and also some kind of a failure support. The red replica increase scalability and database availability in case of any AZ failure as well. It is going to help you to scale beyond the capacity constraint of your single database for read heavy database workload. Red replicas can be in the multi-AZ. That means you can set it in the different AZs as well. By doing this, the load on your source database will be reduced by routing the read queries to the red replica. Now, one more thing, you can promote this red replica just in case wherever there is a need to have a separate database which can do the read as well as the write operation. So you can promote your red replica as well to make it a complete database. That is also possible. Hmm? So that is the red replica for you. With Amazon RDS, you can have 5 red replicas, which can be within the region or it can be in another region as well. So that's the red replica. And by doing this, you are going to greatly improve the performance. So this is one of the good offerings which is available. Okay. So that's it for the Amazon RDS. We will move to another database, which is Dynamodb. So I have a doubt. Can you please give clarity about it? Chochna, can you please write your query? I can try to solve it. How much capacity limit for RDS? So Bilal, it is depending upon the storage size. You can have a larger instance of RDS. You can have a larger storage and so on. So again, it depends upon what is the IOPS requirement. How many read and write operations you are going to do to support that. So you can have a very huge amount of capacity as well. But remember one thing, with RDS, you cannot do a horizontal scaling. You need to do a vertical scaling. Hmm? That's the important thing you have to remember. I hope I answered your query. Hmm? Fine. Let us go and go into the next section, which is the DynamoDB. Hmm? Now, what is DynamoDB? If you look at DynamoDB, DynamoDB is a non-relational database. Non-relational database. Now, what is non-relational database? It is also sometimes called as NoSQL. Okay, they are different from your relational database in the way the data is stored in that. In non-relational database, you do not have a structure of a table as in a row and a column, and that is a non-tabular form. You can see your data can be in this kind of a JSON format with the first name, last name, address, and you can see everything is in a JSON. So there is no schema here. Okay, there is no schema here, and there will be no structure of the data. So you can have any kind of a non-structured data in your no relational database. Hmm? And this no relational be based on it can be like any document, and the document can be highly detailed, creating containing different types of information in different formats at any given point of time. These non-relational database are often used when there is a large quantity of complex and diverse data needs to be stored in your database. Good cases for this non-relational database is any gaming application, wherein you want to store the data of a leaderboard that this person is the top in the leader ranking. This is the point he has, and this is the rewards he has. So all this thing can be done very fast. And remember one more thing, this non-relational database, they are super fast. You can do millions of or petabytes of operations with this non-relational database. So the offering from AWS is called as DynamoDB. Again, your DynamoDB is a fully managed NoSQL database service, which is very simple to use, and it is very cost effective to store and retrieve any amount of data at any level of requested traffic. By doing this, it is going to give you fast and predictable performance with seamless scalability. And you will see the kind of a database which we have just installed. You don't have to do that with your DynamoDB. You don't have to use a kind of a database instance to get working with the DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a serverless based upon serverless architecture, wherein you do not have to worry of the underlying server. DynamoDB enables customer to offload lot of operating and scaling operations of your database to AWS. Why? Because it is fully managed. Again, you don't have to worry about the hardware provisioning, setup, configuration, replication, patching, cluster scaling. No. Why? Because it is a serverless offering from AWS. DynamoDB table do not have a fixed schema, and table can consist of any item, and each item may have different number of attributes. Whenever you store your data into a DynamoDB, the data is synchronously replicated in three AZs in a particular region. So which will give you high availability and data durability. Okay, by using this kind of a three-way replication, you can have a very high performant durable database which is based upon your solid state drive and will provide you very fast database operations. Yes, Bilal, I'll talk about the serverless architecture, yeah, once we complete this, and we'll give a brief introduction to that as well. Okay, so this is your DynamoDB. Now, before I go into the partition keys or the primary keys for our database, I want to just go and give you a walkthrough of the DynamoDB. So let me go into my console. Here is my console, and where is my database? Yeah, here is my database. So now I go to first RDS. Let me do one more thing before we go to the DynamoDB. We are going to delete our RDS, because if you forget to delete your RDS, it might create a bill for you. Even though it is part of the free tier for 750 hours for per month, I just don't want to take a what you can say chance with leaving this database running. Remember, database are very costly resources, so you should, whenever it is not needed, you just go and delete it. So I have just selected and I'm going to just delete it like this. Whenever you go and delete it, it is going to ask you, do you want to take a final snapshot? What is snapshot? It is just a backup. So I will say, no, I don't want to take a final snapshot because I don't need it. But in case of your uh, enterprise architecture, yes, you have to do that. So I will say, I don't want to do that. And I just have to type in delete me here, and it will delete the database for me. And that's it. Okay, fine. So this is going to be deleted. Yeah, now I'm going to look at the DynamoDB. Here it is. Open in another link, and here I am going into the DynamoDB. Now, whatever the configuration which we have done for our RDS, we don't have to do it by provisioning a database. All we have to do is to just go and create a table. No server, nothing. Go and simply create the table. In the case of our this, we created this table of a employee, yeah, with all the things. This is what we are directly doing in our DynamoDB. We are not creating any database. We are directly creating a table. So let us go and say create a table. Here is my table. Now I have to give a name to my table. Let's say my employee. I will say my underscore employee. Yeah, this is the name of the table. Now, whenever we create a table, we have to use something called as partition key. Now, what is partition key? Let us go and see it. So partition key is nothing but a kind of a key which is you need to specify whenever you are going to create a database. This partition key is going to have a unique value within your database table, and this is going to help you to do a indexing of your data in the database. So there are two types of keys. One is a primary key and one is a composite key. So what is a partition key, a primary partition key? It is composed of only one attribute, which is known as partition key. So in this table, there will be only one partition key, and there will be no two data items which will have the same value of the partition key. For example, we have taken we have created a table of employee. So in this employee, I will use a employee ID. Yeah, we are going to use a employee ID as a table or a data for. Okay, so here is my partition key. So I will say employee ID score ID, and I can give a value of string, numbers, binary, and so on. So this becomes my partition key, and this will be unique. Yeah, this is the unique ID for my in my table. I can also have a sort key, which is optional. Okay, So if you look at the sort key, what is that? So when we have a composite primary key, so there will be two attributes to it. One will be the partition key and second will be the sort key. Now within a given table, this partition key, the combination of a partition key and a sort key will be unique across the table. Two items can have the same partition key, but they will have a different sort key. Yeah, all items within with the same partition key value are stored together in the store and they are sorted by the sort key. So what will happen is, yeah, a combination of sort key and a partition key will be unique across the table. Okay, now Bilal has, why you are creating a table? Okay, so I'm not creating a table, I'm just creating a data for my database. It is not stored in the form of table. So we have to do some kind of a representation. So I will show you how it is represented. Hmm? But we are not creating any kind of a table. Okay, it can take any form, anything. Hmm? So I am going to create my employee this, and then I'm going to, I can go ahead with the default setting or I can customize it. I will show you the customized setting. Whenever I store my data, I store that data into a kind of a storage class. With recent change to the DynamoDB, we have two types of storage class. One is called as standard and one is called as standard infrequent access. Standard is for any general purpose, and this is for the frequently access, and this is for non-frequently access. So this kind of a setting you can do with the customized setting. And then we have to look at the calculator. Now, why this calculator, capacity calculator? Because your DynamoDB works on something called as RCU and WCU. Hmm? So we will see what is RCU and WCU. By default, it is going to take the default settings and it is going to have a provision capacity as the capacity mode for the RCU and WCU. Hmm? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to not going to change anything and I'm going to just go with the default setting and create my database. Okay, so here is my database. Uh, Employee ID, employee. That's it. Create table. And bingo. Here is your database created. So you can see within few I would say 10 seconds, we are able to create our database. And how do I see that? I can go into the explore table items and you can see at this moment, I do not have any items in it in my table. So let us go and create item. So the first, which is the partition key, I have a partition key value. Let me put it the value here 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and I will say create item. So this is item created for my database and you will see this value. Now I want to create another item. Okay, and I will say add new attribute and this time I will say yeah, uh, from here I will go here actually, and in the action I will say create item and create new attribute. I can say a string and I will say the key for it, uh, employee name and name, and I can give name as Ram and value can be anything. I can add another, yeah, I can add another string city and put the values. Yeah, and that's it. So now you can see I have created items and there is no restriction that I need to put this value for each and every items in this tables. Okay, and that's the beauty of your DynamoDB table. Hmm? So you can see there's no structure. I can put any JSON format as well, any value in this. There's no need of putting just this string values, number or anything. We can put anything. Hmm? Then I want to go and emphasize on this part. Okay, so this is your partition key, which we have already seen. Now, before we go here in the stream, I want to show you something called as consistency model. Okay, what is the consistency model? Now, whenever you want to use your DynamoDB table, the data is stored in your 3 AZs by default. So whenever you store your data and you want to immediately read that data, okay, immediately read that data, then that is called something called as consistency of the data. So whenever you do a write and you want to read it immediately, in that case, what happens is you might get a data which is just written into that database, or there are chances that you might not get the data as well. Why? This is because of the consistency of your database. And by default, the consistency of your DynamoDB is a eventual consistency. In eventual consistency is what happens is if you do a write to a database, let me take a picture of it and then show you that here is your database. Okay, let's say this is your database and this is your 3 AZs. Yeah, and let's say I have written something here, name. So as soon as I write this, yeah, this is going to be written into this AZ, this AZ, and this AZ. Now, whenever you want to read the after this write operation, so this is the write operation, yeah, this is the write operation, and this is the write operation. Now, after that, you want to do a read operation on this. So at times, what might happen is this name is not populated here. And suppose your read operation goes into this. So what you will get? You will get a blank, or you will not get a data from it. Why this is happening? This is because of the eventual consistency. Why? Because it takes some time to propagate it. And that's the reason this is called as eventual consistency. There is another kind of consistency which is called as strong consistency. Yeah? Now, in the case of a strong consistency, what happens is whenever you do a write, okay, so the data will be returned your name, yeah, and name and name. Now, whenever you want to read it, you are made sure that you are going to get the data from this recently did a write operation. So every time you do a read operation of the for the data which is already, yeah, written there, then you are going to get the latest data after this one, latest data and latest data. So that is the strong consistency for you. So you are guaranteed that whatever the data which you have written, you will be able to read it immediately after it. But in case of a eventual consistency, you might have to wait for more time, maybe 5 milliseconds more to get the data. So that is a eventual consistency for you. I hope it is clear for everybody. Okay, now, so by default, eventual consistency is there. Now let us go and look at another feature of your DynamoDB, which is called as DynamoDB stream. Now, what is this DynamoDB stream? It's an optional feature which is available with your DynamoDB. And what it does is this DynamoDB, what it does, it captures any data modification event which is happening in your DynamoDB table. By doing this, what is doing is it is creating a backup of your all the items which are there in part of your DynamoDB. Based upon this data that DynamoDB stream, it is we can have this event and trigger some kind of action on this. So remember, we have seen our earlier we have seen our S3 event notification. It is something similar to this. So what it is going to do, it is going to create a stream of near real time in the event in the order the event has occurred, and each event is represented by a stream of record. It has to be enabled on the table, and then DynamoDB will write a stream for all of this, whatever the events. So what are the events which it can capture? It can capture any new item. It can capture any update of the item, and it can capture any delete of the item. So what it does, it takes a snapshot of entire attribute of that particular new item. It captures the before and after image of any attributes, and it can capture the before attributes of an item before it is deleted. Okay, so the use case can be something like this. Let us look at sorry. The use case can be something. Okay, for example, we have a customer table. Yeah, where is my, yeah, this is my customer table, and which contains information of your customer. And suppose you want to send a welcome email to your customer. Okay, what do? You enable Dynamodb stream on that table and then associate that stream with a Lambda function. What happens? The Lambda function would run whenever a stream of new record is captured, and it will process that new item of that particular Dynamo customer table only when it has an attribute of email address in it. It will go and check that email attribute. If there is an email attribute, what it will do, it will invoke an SNS, okay, SNS, and send a email, yeah, or it can evoke SES as well, and send an email to that particular address. So here it is. So these are the table, the content of the table, customer table, and you can see there is an attribute of email, and here there is no attribute. So whenever this attribute is available, the DynamoDB stream will write it, a Lambda function will be triggered, and you will send a SMS or an email to that particular customer as a welcome email. So this is DynamoDB for you, and this is how it works. So you have seen how simple it is to create a DynamoDB table or a DynamoDB database. So very simple. So that's it for this DynamoDB table. If you have any question, I am open to take the questions, and then I will just touch base on some of the queries. For example, what is serverless and so on. Please go ahead and post your question. Anyone, any question on this? No? If you have no questions, then I can move ahead. Okay, so Bilal has asked, what is serverless architecture? So what is serverless architecture? I want to just explain you few of the concept. Yeah. So the concept of serverless architecture is something like this. Yeah. You will use a service which will not have any kind of a, I would say, implication of underlining resources on the usage of your service. So one of the serverless service, which is your DynamoDB, we have just seen. Another one is called as Lambda. Yeah, here is your Lambda function. Yeah. So Lambda function, what it does is it uses, okay, some kind of a hardware inside it, but that is not transparent to you as a user. All you have to do is just go there, start using it, and it will increase or decrease the size of the infrastructure which is needed to use. So what you are doing is you are just consuming the service, and that's it. Rest everything is taken care by your AWS. So in this case, you are not bothered about the server, and this is called a serverless architecture for you. Okay, so wherein everything is taken care by your AWS, about in terms of the footprint of the servers, the capacity of it, auto scaling of it, descale, scale in, scale out of it. Everything is taken care by the AWS for it. And this kind of architecture is called as serverless architecture. In AWS, there are various services. For example, your AWS Lambda, your SQS, your Kinesis Firehouse, your API gateway. All those things are the serverless architecture. And this is being, it is very popular nowadays to go for a serverless architecture. An example of Lambda and Dynamo in terms of application. So we have just seen one of the application for our DynamoDB stream. In this case, what we were doing is we have written a piece of code in Lambda, okay, which will trigger an email. Another example. Let me tell you another example. So earlier when we saw S3, we saw that yes, we want to do a image processing. So for the image processing, we have written a code, and this code will do the processing of your images, which is written in the Lambda. Lambda. So this code, whatever we have written, it is being run only when it is triggered by any event. Okay, so this is one of the example of Lambda. Now DynamoDB, yes. So whatever the image which you have just processed, if you want to copy the data of that particular image into a NoSQL table, then you can go for a DynamoDB table. So what you will write? You will write the unique ID, UID of that. Then you will write a type of it, type of the images. Then you will write size, and then you can also write the the tags for it. Okay, whether it is processed yes or processed no. Based upon this, you can run some queries on your DynamoDB table and understand which item is processed, which is not. So these are the use cases of your DynamoDB and your Lambda. So there are so many cases, so many things you can do with this slide DynamoDB, Lambda. It is again based upon your imagination, Bilal. Okay, I hope I am able to answer your queries. Thank you, Bilal. Okay, so that's the end of your AWS part. There are so many other services as part of your AWS, but we have restricted to some of the main services. So there are many services: Lambda, API Gateway, SNS, SQS, Firehouse, and so on. Okay, but because of the limitation of the time for this, we have just covered the major services, and what we are going to cover now is the Microsoft Azure. So as part of this next preparation of our Azure environment, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a link. Now to work with your Microsoft Azure environment, what you have to do, you have to create an account in Microsoft Azure, and that is called as Azure free tier account. Again, Azure also have a free tier account. Now, for creating a free tier account, you need to use credit card. There is no option of using a debit card with Azure. What do you get? You get some kind of some services which are free for a period of 12 months, and also a credit of 200 USD, which you have to use within the 30 days. What you are going to get? You can get Azure virtual machine free of cost, certain virtual machine, just like our T2 micro, which we have seen. So you are going to get B1S type of bustable virtual machine free of cost for a period of 750 hours. So let me just paste it here. And yes, I'm pasting the link here. Then what you are going to get? You are going to get a virtual Linux virtual machine. You are going to get a Windows virtual machine. And then you are going to get a SQL database, then Azure blob storage, and then app Azure function, which is similar to what we have just seen, the DynamoDB, that is also the AWS Lambda, and so on. So one thing you have to do, you have to create a free tier account, and then you can use it for our practical purpose. So okay, So let me just give you an introduction of Azure, and what we will do, we will not start the rest of the things today. We will start it from tomorrow. I will just give you introduction, and then we will from tomorrow we will start with the Azure global infrastructure. Okay, it's fine. So Azure, as we have seen earlier, okay, is the second in terms of the market share. So let me just go to this PPT, which we have used it at the start of our class. Yeah, here is the market share. I'm just going to put this, discard it, and here is the PPT I want to show you about the market share. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, okay. So in terms of market share, Azure is at the second place. Yeah, you can see here. Yeah, Azure it has the second. Um, just a minute. Where is my pointer? Yeah, here it is. So it is at the second place with almost 21% market share, and AWS is at 33% of market share. If you look at the service what are offering by Azure, they are almost similar to what you have with AWS, but the way how Azure works is slightly different from the AWS. Hmm? And we are going to look at that. So the Azure is offering from Microsoft, yeah, and this is their cloud computing offering. Okay, so going back to our PPT here, discard. Um, yes, here it is. Okay, here it is. Yeah. So Azure is the cloud computing platform which is providing you all the need of your business, right from your server, your network, your applications, and so on. Yeah, and it is offered by Microsoft. Azure as a platform was announced in 2008, and then it become generally available in the year 2012. And initially it was named as Windows Azure, and then now in 2014 it is renamed to Microsoft Azure. Hmm? So after that, the services of Azure keeps on evolving. Earlier, it started with something called as Azure Stack, and then it slowly become into a full cloud offering. There are certain services which are very good within Azure as compared to other service provider, and all this service provider has some kind of a what you can say pros and cons as compared to other. Hmm? So we are going to look at all this aspect of Azure starting from tomorrow. Okay, so what we will do, we will stop here because we'll not be able to cover much of this. I just want to just go take you through this one of the map of your Azure, and this is using a third party website, but it is also very good website. You can see very interactive map, and it is showing all the global infrastructure of Azure as such. Hmm? So within India, we have three regions of Azure, which is West India, Central India, and the South India. Hmm? So one of them is in Mumbai, one of them is in Pune, and one is in the somewhere in the what you can say near to Chennai. Yeah. Okay. So this is the infrastructure for you of Azure. So if you have any questions, I can take the questions, and we will end the class slightly early today. Yes, the attendance links is being shared. Anybody else who has any questions on this? We will wait for a couple of minutes. If not, we will end the class for today. Hmm? Any questions? No? Okay, so that's it for today. Yeah, we'll end the class and we'll meet tomorrow at the same time. Okay, Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Bye bye. Thank you. All right. Yeah, thank you.